But let's move on now. 2017 NBA draft. College hasn't started. I think, Ricky, you said a week before it starts.
Yep.
And
right now, this is where the teams are kind of playing their exhibition games against the lower colleges that just want to play some exhibition games.
They toss them a couple $100 to take a fall. You're like, hey, you want to lose to us by 60?
No, these
like
don't,
in college football?
These don't count. These don't count.
No, I know they don't. But that's like college football. You know, the warm-up games where you pay a college a couple $100.
But these are the true
You get some new lights out there?
These are the true definition of warm-up games. Like, where it's just like, oh, want to play a scrimmage?
Yeah, like Brett Calipari hitting a three and one there, and his dad trying not to smile. But yeah, anyways, fuck that. It was a terrible game. Finally, let's get to the actual topic here. Is who is really getting you excited for the 2017 draft? Because obviously you got two. It's kind of a guard heavy here because we haven't really seen guards be the real topic of a draft here. But I mean, you got Fultz and Smith, who are right now on Draft Express,
and Fox
1 and
Kentucky.
2. Fox in Kentucky here, and then you also got Josh Jackson, Jason Tatum for your small forwards there. You got Harry Giles down there, Jonathan Isaac as well, and then if you're going for the older guard, you got Grayson Allen, Nigel Hayes, who's really old. You also got Ivan Robb as well, who's in the mix as well.
And he's an interesting one because we talked about him, and he was in your mock drafts.
He was a top 10
all the way up until almost right before, and then he's like, fuck it, I'm going back.
Yeah, he was
at the last second he pulled out.
He was in my top 10. He'll stay in my top 10.
Yeah.
Unless he has a serious injury or something here. I think he's still just the fact that how well he played in his freshman year, Evan going back, he's just going to be more experienced. And I think I really like that move for Rob, and I think that he can be a top 7 player just because I think that people in front of him will go because of their youth. But I think like actual production right out of college, I think he's going to be the best right away.
The guy who is the most intriguing to me is Markelle Fultz. And the reason why is he's going to be an interesting one because right now I'm looking at draftexpress.com. He's at the top. He's number 1. The freshman coming in, and really he's got a unique experience because he can step in as a freshman and be the guy like most college teams because DeJounte Murray, I'm going to call him DJ. DJ is now with the San Antonio Spurs, the guy that Sean and Dave loved over here when we were talking 2016 draft. But the reason why he's the most interesting to me is, do I think he's going to perform well? Yes. But is playing for Washington...
Hey now.
I'm not ragging on Washington.
Are you sure you're not?
I'm ragging on the conference they play in. West Coast doesn't get as much time as the East Coast, and it's one of those things where when you're playing at 11 o'clock Eastern, most people are going to bed.
Okay, but that doesn't mean for a draft stock here. I mean, we're talking about that and saying...
I'm just saying, as from a popularity standpoint, of course, scouts are going to be different, but to me, it's going to be we are not going to hear fully on ESPN about Markelle until December 7th at Gonzaga when he beats Gonzaga.
See, but the one thing here is you say that, but I mean, Andre Bargnani went fucking number 1 overall, and he's an international player.
I'm not saying he's not going to go number 1. I'm just saying he's not going to get that media coverage until he plays those big teams.
Yeah, we've seen guys like that before. I mean, Andrew Bogut, a Pac-12 guy from Utah. I mean, no one's watching Utah in general. And I don't even think they were Pac-12 at the time. I think they were Mountain West when he was drafted. So, I mean, that's Mountain West. Wasn't even a top conference. He goes to Milwaukee, of all places. So, I mean, I don't think the school's really going to hurt him that much because even Marquise Chris was getting buzzed, too, when he was Washington last year.
Let's not get things twisted. I wasn't saying the school's going to hurt. I just said it was going to be interesting.
He's got to prove himself even more because his competition's so poor.
Well, it's... I mean, you've got the Arizonas and Oregon's really good, so you can kind of piggyback off of winning some of those games, but it's really going to come on...
Yeah, sorry, everyone can't play in the Big Ten.
In the media... Well, the Big Ten is it's probably the best in... Like, the SEC in football is the Big Ten.
That's why I said sorry, never can't play in the Big Ten.
But this kid already...
This
guy has something special. I mean, I was reading a little bit about... Washington played Western Washington in their last exhibition, his kind of delayed debut, where the team, they only won 109-103, though. It was a close 6-point game.
Because they had the walk-ons playing.
And to me, in the entire article, that it kind of like sank in that, oh, this kid's going to be good, is they described Washington was down by 3, 87-84 with 4:21 left. Markelle hit a jumper, drove to the baseline, sunk a reverse layup, canned 2 free throws, and they went on a 6-0 run. Boom, 90-87 at the 3:29 mark, and they pulled ahead for the win.
And one thing too, I mean, talking more about the teams that will be picking these guys. I mean, really, I mean, we're going to say Philadelphia is going to be the worst team in the NBA.
They're going to pray that they get this guy.
Yeah,
do they really want a guy like him?
A point guard? Yeah, I think they do.
Are they going to look for a point guard who has a better shot than he does because they're relying on Ben Simmons?
Do they want a playmaker?
Point forward? You can afford to have an extra shooter there at point guard because of him. It's something to consider.
I think that this kid this season is going to be so good that you can't pass him up. It's not going to be like, it's not like he's LeBron James, you can't pass him up. It's going to be, if we don't pass this kid up, so you think
he's
idiots.
by far and away the best player going into this year?
Right now, yes, he is.
One thing I want to say though is one thing with that is you're going to have Ben Simmons. And then you're going to have, and just saying that he's going to Philadelphia. And he is my number one player right now. But he's my number one player right now. So, I mean, that's going to mean you're going to have Ben Simmons, who thinks he's going to be the guy because he went number 1 overall. We talked about Embiid's possible makeup issues that he's kind of turning into Boogie in some areas, or might go turn into Boogie. And then you're going to have Fultz, who really feels like he was going to be a playmaker. He's going to be that guy, especially going number 1 overall. So you might have a KD Westbrook situation, but with 3 guys. I mean, I think that might be a problem you actually run into, and I think that's the reason why Dave brought up the shooter idea, which isn't an awful idea. But yep. I totally know what you're saying. When you have a guy at this level, it's so hard to say, no, we're not going to draft him.
I think what's going to happen is one of the things that I criticized in college for Ben Simmons is in some of the big moments and in most of the games, he was a guy that kind of passed the ball off, didn't do it kind of felt like he was afraid of the big moment at some times. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to look at this kid and go, okay, we can draft Markelle and he can be the guy to, if we need to take it to a hole, we need a last second shot, he's the guy, while Ben Simmons can just be the overall best player on this team.
You're forgetting about the process over there.
Well, Embiid's going to add to it. There's big threes in this league for reasons, and
He's a big one.
This one you can't do it alone.
I know you can't.
He's just joking. He's fucking with you.
And the one thing I do want to throw out there, and I had to look for this comment. I know it's only one comment and one person,
but every comment matters.
Well, they do. And Larry Brown tweeted on our first impressions video that Philly needs/wants Markelle. They need and want him.
And I think I understand the point where you need a guard. And you do need a guard in Philadelphia. But the thing is more of, do you need a scoring guard or do you need a playmaking guard? And I think Fultz really relies more on the playmaking ability. And yes, he can score. I'm not saying he can't. But
I think the chance of someone like a Malik Monk coming up, and this is a dude who can just straight up score for you. I know they've got him ranked a little bit further back on Draft Express, but look, they haven't played a game of actual college ball yet. I think he's a guy who could be an excellent fit for the 76ers going into the season because of that ability. He can be a 1 or a 2. He's great on the ball. He's good off the ball. He knows how to move. He's young and he knows how to move, which is something that even older guys sometimes have trouble with, is how to move without the ball. So that's one of the things that kind of impresses me about him. And look, if he can play pick and roll, he can dump it down low to Joel Embiid. Like, he is going to, he already in my mind is like the best fit. It's just whether he can live up to the hype and to the expectations I've got for him that deserves to be that top pick from the 76ers in this draft.
Really what Malik Monk is going to be is he's going to be this year's Jamal Murray for Kentucky, because you're going to have De'Aaron Fox at the point. You're going to have Monk, a guy who shooting guard, point guard, who that's what Jamal Murray was. We talked about how, he's a shooting guard, but he can also play point guard. Both of them are 6'4". The only difference, Malik Monk a little bit smaller in the weight department compared to Jamal Murray. So really, it's Kentucky reloaded. They lost Ulis.
When don't they?
They lost Murray, and boom, now you get Fox and Monk.
Yeah.
Or Monk and Fox. I like that one better. Monk and Fox.
Yeah. No, I think it's fit wise. For me, the guy I'm looking towards in this draft is Josh Jackson. He's one of the few two-way players who still at small forward, we talked about it's the most impactful position in the NBA. It's where you can actually get one guy and be like, this is who we're building around, and this is what can take us deep in the playoffs. And I think that what he has brought, from his early games and from, the preseason games pretty much, is the fact that dude can play both ways. He's aggressive on defense. He's aggressive on offense. The only thing I don't like is his shot right now. His shot, he's weird with his shot because he jumps really high. It's like he doesn't quite get it, but that's something that can be taught. You can, like a golfer changes their swing, you can change your shot in basketball. I think he can be coached into getting that shot smoother, and confidence isn't lacking. Even though it's not a pretty shot, he still has no questions. He doesn't second guess himself.
And that's the thing. I'm going to throw out really quick. This is a quote from Bill Self, his coach at Kentucky, and he's already said, and I quote, "I've said it all along, he could score 12 points and dominate a game, but he's got to do more things to get easy baskets. We get so hung up on what we need to, or what we do when we have the ball." Josh played 19 minutes the other day. He probably actually had the ball maybe a total of 1 minute or a minute and a half. What did you do with the other 17 minutes that he didn't actually touch the ball? End quote. That's the thing that he's got to work on this year.
And two players that I want to throw out that are kind of interesting to me, and I don't know if it's his Philadelphia or number one potential, but just later on. And one guy that I think is just destined to be a Clipper in some ways. And
I love this.
Can I take a guess?
Yeah.
Grayson Allen?
No.
Oh,
you're not getting a Jamal Crawford replacement yet.
He's not in the area that the Clippers most likely would be drafting. He's more of a lottery pick.
I just say that because last year I think you had Grayson Allen going to the Clippers in that range.
I think I did. But it's Lorenzo Ball from UCLA. This guy's 6'6". He's a point guard who runs just in high school was running transition.
They might have to replace a point guard.
And that's what I was bringing up. He runs just transitional. He was running transitional offense in high school, constantly tossing lobs, constantly playing pick and roll. So, I mean, let's see. You got Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, two of the most athletic goddamn players in the league. Two guys that just thrive on their athleticism. Two guys that live in the pick and roll here. And he's got a developing shot. And I love that size, too, because you're just adding size to size to size. I mean, Chris Paul gets kind of bullied around, not really, but I mean, he can get bullied around by a bigger point guard. He doesn't do it often because he's so damn good. Like, hey, I have to take.
Don't disrespect Chris Paul.
I'm not. He's a top 3-point guard in the league. But that's one guy that I think if you can develop that skill and you could develop that shot and you could develop that his knack of going to the basket, a 6'6" point guard. I mean, we were waiting for Michael Carter-Williams to do something, but that never happened.
Good God.
But if you put him on the right team, I think that can be something that's very special there, especially because if they do get rid of Chris Paul, then you can take a guy like Lorenzo Ball. And then again, I'm going to go back to him, Ivan Robb. I mean, NBA ready already, and now he's going to go back for another year. And the only thing that will screw him is if he gets injured, because I think he's going to be the best player coming out of the draft immediately. I'm not saying that he will be the best player from this draft class, but
he can walk and have
right
that
away.
Impact.
Yeah, right away.
I'm going to tag on someone else. It's the two guys that I'm kind of looking at with specialize is Rob and then also Thomas Bryant coming back to the Hoosiers this season. Both of them are going to be sophomores, and it's one of those things of, okay, you have this new system of you can kind of see where the lottery is, where you might fall, and then you can make a decision of if you want to go back or not. These are two guys decided to go back, didn't like where the teams fell. What are you going to do in that second year now? How are you going to progress in college? I think Thomas Bryant's the guy where we're looking at him where what development are you going to make? With Rob, it's all going to be how much better are you going to get? Because we just need to see no regression from him.
But if they don't improve,
then it tanks their stock a little bit more.
I think with Rob, I think he's still gonna. I think he's a top 10 pick no matter what. To be honest with you, I mean, if
everything's there for him already, you're right.
If he stays where he's at, then I mean, all right, you're gonna pick a guy who was projected to go 10 overall. I mean, like in the top 10. I don't think he's gonna go away from that. And really, the one thing that I just kind of want to see him do better is just tighten up his game, because the game right now he has is something that's NBA ready. I mean, he's not great shooting, especially from 3-point land, but
he's not a dynamic player. I'm going to be honest. But what he does is he knows his game and he plays within that, and it's not fancy. It doesn't impress you, but he gets the job done.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like he really can expand that far, but he's not the worst shooter, but he's not that great of a shooter. Kind of in the Blake Griffin area where it's like, yeah, Blake Griffin can shoot, but you don't want Blake Griffin shooting. And defensively, he's not tight enough where knowing where to go. But I mean, with his wingspan, with his athleticism, he's going to be able to stuff shots. He's going to be able to get around. It's just more of being in the right place, being at the right time. And that's one thing of more maybe draft position. But I really think that he can be something special in the NBA. And if someone's taking him at 10 because they're like, oh, well, you know, we have a guy in Josh Jackson or Jason Tatum or Fultz or Dennis Smith, and we really like the potential he has, but they're drafting on potential alone and not actual talent. I think Ivan Rabb showed last year in Cal that he not only has that potential, but he also has that talent. And if he can just tighten up that game, I think it's going to be so hard for a team, especially if we see something weird or fucky where, you know, it's a team like Boston at 3 or a team like Minnesota at 5 like last year, or a team like Toronto at 9. I mean, I don't think a playoff team or a team that's like close to the playoffs that you know traded up there, especially with Boston having the Nets pick again. I don't think there's a goddamn way they pass it up, because he's ready to play in the NBA now, and I think that it's just more tightening his game. And you're saying you're not going to draft this guy and put him with Brad Stevens and tighten up his game? I mean, that's the fair. One thing is, I just think that he can be something truly special, and maybe I'm sipping the juice. And also last year I said Nigel Hayes was going to be a first rounder. So
he's coming back. He might be in the draft next year, maybe.
Yeah, he's not going to. He's going to have the Ben Bentil special where we get drafted in the second round and get cut.
One guy, and this is the last guy I want to bring up on my end, is this is a guy where at the beginning of last year I thought he was going to make some noise and be one of those top prospects, and then he kind of faded out. Now coming into his junior year, can he get back to that? Melo Trimble at Maryland. Can he be the point guard and kind of add himself to this already kind of stacked point guard class that we have? Because 2 years ago, people were looking at him as a freshman like, man, one more year, he comes out, he's draft material.
He needs to be the best player in college basketball to be a first round pick.
Many thought he could have been last year.
He needs to have a Buddy Hield type season. Or
just absurd stats.
Well, that's the thing, that Buddy
Hield take over every game.
Buddy Hield wasn't a lottery pick going into his junior year.
No one pretty much knew who he was.
He grew a lot year by year, and the jump for this final year was just absurd.
Well, that's the thing, is Trimble digressed last season, and he wasn't good, and that's the thing that had him fall. And right now, I think he's barely in the second round. I mean, he needs to have something where he's Big Ten Player of the Year. I mean, that's the way he gets into the first round, and that's barely in my eyes.
As a freshman, you're sitting there like he was 16.2, shooting 44 from the field, 41 from 3, and you saw him drop from 44% to 41 from the field, 41 to 31 from 3, and he dropped almost a whole 2 points per game.
He was brutal, and and his playmaking didn't improve, and that's a guy that's
so he's on a redemption tour. Let's see what he can do.
What he is. As a junior, he can drink a beer. That's how old he is. He can be one of the only draft members that can drink a beer.
Wow, fun fact there. Thanks, Ricky.
Well, they're coming out younger and younger these days.
They truly are. My last guy is Grayson Allen.
I was just gonna be my final guy. We Agree podcast.
I know.
Ship it.
It's hard. I think I love it because it's another one of these kids out of Duke who everybody hates on.
The dirtiest player in college basketball.
You're just salty.
Because he's your favorite dirtiest player in college basketball.
Draymond nut kicking Green.
I didn't say Draymond's not dirty. I still love him.
I know, and I don't think Grayson's that dirty.
You say Grayson with so much spite, though. Grayson Allen.
He is the embodiment of a modern day. I'm forgetting his name. Leitner.
You just basically white Duke players. You hate them. Like, can you name a single white Duke player you don't hate?
JJ Redick.
I love JJ Redick.
Well, no. Not We Agree podcast, because we both love JJ Redick. I'm talking to this spiteful motherfucker over here.
I never hated JJ Redick.
Hello, you said he wasn't even that good.
But I didn't
even in an early podcast last season.
But I never hated him.
I think we might have proof. I'll go back tonight.
JJ Redick.
I'm going to find proof. Anyways.
All right. Either way, though, look, Grayson Allen, great slashing guard. He gets to the hoop. He can improve his outside shot. I think getting an outside scorer in this draft, he's probably one of the better ones that are going to be available. And
I want to see, too, how he works with Duke's recruits and how he's going to go.
Because he's now the veteran on the team.
Yeah, and is he going to get pushed out, really? I mean, is he going to be the guy, or are they going to go to Tatum more?
It's 50-50.
I mean, they kind of went to Brandon Ingram a lot in that NCAA tournament, and I want to see if they do that again. I want to see if Grayson Allen can be the guy at Duke, or if he's going to kind of take a step back, and that's something that
he could
is
just
interesting.
Fade away.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's going to be the end of the fast break. We hit an hour, boys. It's been the last time we had an hour podcast, but we hit an hour here on the fast break.
That's what happens when you get to the draft talking.
It's what time flies when you're having fun. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. If you are listening, don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. If you want to see our faces a little bit more, see some more video podcasts, that's where you're going to help us out at patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. You can find us on Twitter. Check us out in the descriptions. I'm at Schwarbo. Ricky's at Ricky Widmer. Dave's at Dave_don't_tweet. And I think that's it. I think that's all I have to plug. So anyway.
Did you hit Patreon?
I said that was the first thing I did.
Cool.
Right. Anyways, for Ricky Widmer and Dave Oster, I'm Sean Anderson. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod for more great podcasts.